with your host, Andrew Romanella.
When you play battle in Mario Kart and you don't turn off any of the items, there are bananas everywhere. I mean, it's like you're losing your balloons because you're slipping on bananas left and right. Bananas everywhere. What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to another edition of The Rome Show here on 12ouncesports.com, broadcasting live on YouTube, X, and Roku TV. I am your host, Andrew Romanella. I got you for the next 30 and change. It is Tuesday, January 28th. 2025, and that means the one and the only Rocky Romanella joins us around 7:10, 7:12 this morning to discuss hockey with Rocky. So an exciting show for the people today. We got to talk Washington Capitals goaltenders being extended, and deservedly so. Big trades out of Carolina and Colorado. Some stuff to talk about there. We got some standings to assess for the people, and then another version of rock solid or rock soft. So much National Hockey League to get to when Rocky joins us in about 10 minutes or so. We remind you to get in on the action. The Rome Show 1, Facebook, TikTok, X, Instagram, whatever the social media is, or the mothership 12. That's the number 12, ozsports.com. Follow 12OZ Sports on Instagram and X. Follow 12OZ Sports TV on TikTok. So many places you can get the show if you miss it or want to share it. YouTube.com/12OZ Sports or the Rome Show podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Just search it. Okay. In Major League Baseball, the offseason free agency signing, make decisions before spring training window is quickly shrinking. We are roughly 25 days away from the first set of pitchers and catchers reporting in Major League Baseball. But that does not mean the end of the offseason in the MLB. What has gone on, okay, over the last, what I would call decade, is the free agency period, the signing period, the time with which players would sign for spring training to get ready to be involved in the February and the March spring training has extended. Okay. There was often, or for a long period of time, a thought that you needed to get guys signed and they had to have an ample amount of time to get ready for spring training, which also gets them ready for the regular season. Okay. As a baseball guy myself, I can't necessarily dispute this, but I'm not going to dive into the logics of it right now. The bottom line is, the free agent signing period has extended dramatically in Major League Baseball over the course of the last 10 years. For example, okay, just the other day, the Dodgers signed Tanner Scott to a 4-year, $72 million contract. For those of you that don't know, Tanner Scott is a reliever who last year with San Diego had a 1.75 ERA and 28.6% of the time threw a strike, okay, or threw a strikeout, excuse me, got to finish that sentence there. So a 28.6% strikeout percentage with a 1.75 ERA, and less than a month before pitchers and catchers report to spring training, that man has signed a 4-year, $72 million contract. So the other side of that fence is it's also no longer just a quick 1-year minor league deal leading up to spring training. Legitimate names are available. Legitimate names are signing contracts, and we still have questions on legitimate names, much like for the New York Metropolitans, Mr. Pete Alonso. Now, there's been a lot of talk about Pete Alonso this offseason, even including dating to during the 2023 Major League Baseball season in July. So we've been on this conversation for over 7 months now. Okay. David Stearns the president of baseball operations for the New York Metropolitans, and their owner, Steve Cohen, were recently in front of microphones and asked a lot of questions about this, okay? The owner, Steve Cohen, really took control of these answers here and had a few things to say about Pete Alonso and the potential or lack thereof of signing with the New York Metropolitans. The owner of the Mets had this to say: I don't like these negotiations. I don't like what's been presented to us. Maybe that changes. If it stays this way, I think we have to get used to the fact that we may have to go forward with existing players. Essentially stating, if we don't get anywhere anytime soon, or i.e. Pete's camp and agent Scott Boras don't get on the same page with the Metropolitans, we as a franchise are going to have to move forward without Pete Alonso in a Mets uniform. Now, I'm here to say any Mets fan that would be annoyed with Mets management over this, I don't believe really has a leg to stand on, okay? First and foremost, I think Stearns and Cohen have finally, over the last 3 or 4 years, given this Mets franchise a pulse of normalcy, okay? It feels like we operate normally now. It feels like the Mets have a steady head on their shoulders. Leadership is positive. You seem to be having good player acquisition, good drafting minor leagues. It's finally normal for the Mets, okay? And then you have this player, a poor man's version of Saquon Barkley for the New York Giants. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just that the difference maker Saquon will be on a team comparative to Pete Alonso, and then the difference in contract. Like, the Giants needed to give Saquon $2 more each year or something like that. And that, to me, for the Maras and the Tishes, not that big of a deal. Whereas Pete Alonso wants like Bryce Harper type stupidity when it comes to his money asks. And the Mets want to sign him like he's Joey Votto, which I don't think is that big of a deal either. Okay? And there is a real misconception of what each side believes each side is worth. Pete Alonso probably thinks he's worth upwards of 7-8 years, $300 million, whereas the Metropolitans think Pete Alonso is worth 6 to 7 years, between $160 and $200 million. And in my opinion, that's fine. Like, as a Mets fan, that's fine. I finally have an organization being run by two dudes that understand the business side of the fence. Now, I'm sitting here telling you that the Giants made a huge mistake with Saquon. That's why I'm not necessarily comparing them, because I don't think the Mets will make a huge mistake with Pete Alonso not signing. Do I want him back? Yes. Do I think he is good for this team? Yes. Has he had a lot of great moments for the New York Metropolitans? Yes. But do I think he's worth a contract that's going to hemorrhage the future purchase of other players? No. And you say that in the same offseason where you sign Juan Soto for essentially $1.7 billion, right? Exaggeration, but it was a ridiculous amount of money. And you're like, well, just go spend the money on Pete. Who cares? No. What I love is we have an owner and a GM that are like, no, we're not just going to overspend on everybody. We're only going to a degree, overspend or spend to the line we believe this player is worth. So we believe Juan Soto's worth the most amount of money in the league, so we're going to give it to him. But if we don't believe Pete Alonso is worth the most amount of money as a first baseman in Major League Baseball, or one of the top 15 highest paid players in Major League Baseball, then they're going to stick firm on that. And I agree with that. And I can agree with that and agree with signing Juan Soto for $700+ million. Because the two do not fall into the same category just because they're spending so much money. The Mets have already offered Pete Alonso a 7-year deal worth $158 million. And I also read some supports that deal was upwards of $200 million. So essentially, the Mets had offered a deal, 7 years, between 160 and 200 mil. And I'm guessing some incentives and some other things play into that. I did some contract research for the people just to give you an idea, okay, of where it falls. All right. compared to contracts over the course of time. So let's go to the category of Pete Alonso being offered a 7-year, $160 million a year contract. Okay. According to the history of all-time Major League Baseball, the Houston Astros signed Jose Altuve to a 7-year, $163.5 million contract in 2008. The Astros went on to win 2 World Series and appear in 3, I believe, over the course of that contract. And I think nobody would argue that during the stretch of that contract, or at least the first 5 of 7 years, Jose Altuve was the best second baseman in Major League Baseball, offensively and defensively, and on the base pass, and in clutch moments and winning. Okay, so that is your line right there. Okay, now if you go up from there, you see Matt Olson with Atlanta recently, 8 years, $168 million. Okay, do we believe Matt Olson and Pete Alonso are very similar baseball players? Yes, we do. Okay. So I think Pete and Scott Boras need to start looking at the market, looking at who they are as a player, and start to be like, maybe we overshot it here. Maybe 7 years ago, Pete Alonso would have gotten an 8 to 10 year, $250 million contract. And maybe there are people in free agency around you getting that large of a dollar figure, but you're not worthy of that. Final argument before we bring Rocky onto the show. Cody Bellinger signed a deal with the Chicago Cubs 2 years ago worth 3 years for roughly $80 million. Okay. And the transition to negotiations has now gone to, okay, maybe a shorter deal with a larger annual value. Well, here are the statistics between Pete Alonso and Cody Bellinger. Pete Alonso, through 6 years in the league, 226 home runs in 846 games. He's got 781 hits, 586 RBIs, a .514 slugging percentage, but he's only hitting .249. Cody Bellinger, through 8 years in the league when he signed the deal with the Cubs, 259, 196 home runs in 1,000 games plus, 942 hits, 597 RBIs, and a .484 slugging percentage. If you take Cody Bellinger's 3-year, $80 million deal and you extend it over the course of 6 years, you're looking at 6 years, $160 million. Okay? All of this, everything I'm telling you, leads me to believe that David Stearns and Steve Cohen are making the right decisions for the New York Metropolitans right now. Okay? And I don't know where this ends up. I hope it ends with Pete Alonso being a New York Metropolitan, but Pete Alonso wasn't going to act like Joey Votto did for the Cincinnati Reds in 2014 or whatever it was, when he signed an 8-year, $200 million deal before hitting free agency at a significantly lowered price because he wanted to stay where he was and loyal to his team. Joey Votto, arguably one of the best hitters of this generation, probably shouldn't have stayed in Cincinnati, but took a discount, took the contract during the year. And you know what? That's what Mets fans need from Pete Alonso right now. And by the way, Pete, the grass ain't always greener. Maybe your agent is actually putting you in a terrible spot. And that's not the decision you should make. The decision we should make is going to a commercial break and then coming back with our favorite segment of the week, which is Hockey with Rocky. So stay with us here on the Rome Show, 12OZ Sports, Roku TV, and X. Andrew Romanella back after this.
Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money, and we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.
Now, inside the glass, hockey with Rocky.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Martin Natchez, and I play for the Colorado Avalanche now. How you doing?
Martin, we are doing well here on the Rome Show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm trying to figure out why Pete Alonso is turning down $23 million a year. It's the same exact offer he had 2 years ago. Like, what are we doing?
So, as a Mets fan and somebody that I think would fancy themselves as somebody that could say baseball with Rocky at certain points of the year, can you just give me your quick thoughts on the Pete Alonso thing? Because taking the Mets fanship out of it, Rocky, I'm just looking at the logics of it and looking at the history of the position and the statistics other people have put out there. I feel like what the Mets are doing is very fair and very right.
The second that the Mets signed Juan Soto, Pete Alonso should have been, I need to be a Met. Because he immediately gets better protection in the lineup. He immediately is going to see better pitches than what he's seen over the last 3 years. You got to look yourself in the mirror and realize that you are not the same slugger that you were 3 years ago when you turned down the opportunity to get your big money. And so now you're sitting here and you're like, I'm either going to take as much as I can get and fizzle out and hope that I get onto a World Series team, or I ride it out and I become a Mets hero similar to David Wright. Like, what do you want to do?
You know, it's funny that you mentioned David Wright, Rocky, because he signed one of those contracts that looks very similar to what I think Pete Alonso should sign. Now, obviously, like 12, 15 years ago, so significant difference in time period. But David Wright's deal with the Mets was 9 years, $164 million. The Mets offered Alonso 7 years, $158. I mean, you want to be like that. That guy's about to get his number retired. There's the deal.
At 22 and a half a year 2 years ago, and a 3 year, $70 million deal, which is rumored to be offered 2 days ago. I think you said it. I mean, that's 23 and a half. So like it's you are noticeably a worse player comparative to what you were. You are now 30 years old. No one's paying first baseman. Everything is against you, and we offered you the same amount of money per year.
Yeah.
And you're going to be with us. I mean, it's 5 years since the offer when you're done. So, I mean, we literally just said we want you to be a New York Met, and you're saying no. And I think that this is where like a player needs to call their agent and be like, I don't need an agent for this deal.
Yeah, that's where you hired Scott Boras, and that was probably the wrong decision. All right, let's get onto the ice because there is so much going on in the National Hockey League right now. And Rocky, we are right up against a National Hockey League break in 2 weeks. So there's very like so much happening. So I'm actually going to let you start the Frozen conversation today. Yeah. Hockey with Rocky, it's you.
Yeah, we'll start with the blockbuster trade that we saw last week. Mikko Rantanen, Taylor Hall go to Carolina via a three-way trade with Chicago and the Colorado Avalanche. So Carolina is receiving forward Mikko Rantanen, who is sixth all-time in the Colorado Avalanche in goals scored for their organization, has been there for his entire career, won a Stanley Cup, and upwards of looking for Leon Draisaitl, $14 million a year money coming into his UFA year. They also pick up Taylor Hall, who, if I could, I really need to go back and look at the tape from our original trade segment. I do believe I mentioned he could be someone that Chicago could move.
I do believe you did mention that as well. You
so
did.
I'm happy about that.
We'll get the tape. We'll go to the tape.
So Chicago retains 50% of Rantanen's salary. They pick up a draft pick back from Carolina in an earlier trade. They also pick up a prospect, Nils Junthrop, and Colorado is receiving forward Martin Natchez, who, similar to Rantanen for the Avs, similar to Carolina, only had played for Carolina, one of their highest goal-scoring forwards. So Colorado received Martin Natchez, Jack Jury, 2 picks, a second round 2025 and a fourth in 2026. 2 teams that are both Stanley Cup hopefuls. Obviously, Colorado was there 3 years ago, and they've just been itching to get back. And very impressive maneuver for both teams. So who do you want me to talk about first, Colorado or Carolina?
I want you to talk about Colorado first, because I do understand the money that Rantanen is going to probably get on the free agency market. Okay. But we don't think that the Colorado Avalanche could have done anything to keep him there, or they don't have the finances to make that happen. Or is this about to be like an astronomical contract that we haven't seen in the NHL, Rock?
I think that when you look at the Colorado Avalanche, their entire season is fascinating. They traded away both of their goaltenders.
Well,
Their two
that's why
goaltenders now
I'm looking
are
at the thing
not
and I'm like, what's going on?
their two goaltenders today are not the two goaltenders they started the year with. They just moved, historically one of their best players, ever. But the problem is that Gabriel Landeskog is in until 2029. He's the captain of the team. He's making $7 million a year. Nathan McKinnon is making 12.6 a year until 2031.
He is the
And
leading point scorer in the NHL, though,
it,
correct?
if you are, well, that's the thing. Like, so if you're Colorado, am I overpaying my best player? And you the really there, and there is an example of this right now in the NHL. Right now, Austin Matthews is making $3.25 million a year. William Nylander is making 11.5 for for Toronto. Mitch Marner is making 10.9, and Nylander and Marner could both be seeking that. So you've got
Sure.
four players wrapped up in double-digit million-dollar amounts, and you have never made it past the first round. Colorado is looking at their team and they're looking at their depth and they're saying we're deeper. And Martin Necas has a $6.5 million price tag, and he can give us the exact same thing I've got from Rantanen. So I'm either gonna have to make a decision on this guy at the end of the season, or I can make a play right now, completely overhaul my. I don't know if I'm gonna overhaul my roster, but I watched Colorado play against the Rangers on Sunday, and Martin Necas fit in extremely well to that offense.
And clearly, Colorado has a great farm system because I feel like every 3 years there's a new superstar in Colorado. No,
I mean, Landeskog has been there for a long time. Nathan McKinnon has been there. Those guys have really been, the cornerstones in the offense. And Cale Makar has been there since he was drafted. You've got Cale Makar, a perennial Vesna, or excuse me, perennial. Why is the defensive word escaping me?
MVP. I can't. Conn Smythe.
No, no, he's not.
I'm just
No,
gonna
no,
list out the ones that I know off the top of my head.
no.
Stanley
But
Cup. No.
Kale, so you've got the core there, and you're saying those guys are here for another 5 years. Like, I can't afford to pay a guy $14 million a year when I can get two players who can produce just as much at 6.5 and 7 million a year, and I can be a deeper lineup. So that's really the decision you're making. It's obviously not working with four guys over the $10 million mark in Toronto, or else they'd have 3 or 4 cups back to back at this
Yeah.
point, because those guys have been there for a significant period of time. So you're looking at the landscape of the teams and saying, this isn't a recipe for the Stanley Cup. As much as I want to keep this player, I've got three others that are arguably more important to the organization. Now, I don't know if those players would say that about their teammate, which they were very public about. I can't believe this happened.
Yeah, I saw that.
But at the same time, Nate just fits well.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
he
sometimes
had a
it's a
couple
business
assists to
decision.
the business decision. The business decision turned out to be a great hockey decision because both players are equivalent in the lineup for each team, which is what's super impressive.
Yeah,
And that's why I'm even more impressed on the Carolina front, because everyone thought that they were crazy for not signing Jane Gensel, but now they have an opportunity to sign Rantanen, and they just made the exact same move. And even if they move away from Rantanen and let him go elsewhere, there's a recipe in Carolina that is working, and it's just a matter of if they can get past the Eastern Conference Finals.
yeah, no, that makes so much sense, and it's been proven. Both of these organizations over the last 10 years been proven that they have a recipe for success that works and can work over different times, different scenarios, different needs, free agency, developing players, spending money, etc. In terms of spending money, in terms of making your organization great long term, the Washington Capitals, Rocky, believe they did that by signing Logan Thompson to a 6-year extension. Would you like to discuss?
I mean, it's a great move and great for Logan Thompson. He gets traded to the Caps from Vegas. And this is his first year with the Caps, and really he was number two behind Charlie Lindgren. But Lindgren gets hurt in December, and Logan Thompson fills in and absolutely dominates. And unfortunately, like, this is the business of sports when it comes to injury. In reality, both Charlie Lindgren and Logan Thompson are UFAs. They were UFAs coming into the end of the year. And, Logan Thompson being a little bit younger, only in his third year in the league, and he's backstopping one of the best retools that we've seen in the NHL to date this season. And backstopping the Caps to go on a run where they lost Ovi for 20 games and they didn't skip a beat.
Yeah.
They find themselves at the top of the Metropolitan Division, settled in for a nice playoff run. Like, their initial starter goes down. Like, why not lock up this guy for 6 more years and solidify that roster in the most important position on the team? I mean, you really played for the job and he earned it. And he took advantage of his opportunity.
The Caps are 33-11-5 this season, Rocky. Logan Thompson has a 22-2-3 record in his 27 starts, a .925 save percentage, and a .209 goals against. The Capitals are going to be a force as this season goes on. You want to go standings, then rock solid, rock soft? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I like it because the standings will lead us right there.
All right, go get them. I'll put up the standings that you're talking about as you go.
Just as the Rangers play themselves into the wild card race again, they're the number one point getting team as of their game on Sunday versus Colorado. They're the number one point getting team in January, one of the best teams in the NHL. They find themselves finally into the wild card race, and seemingly now, 2 days later, 3 points out. The race in the Eastern Conference is incredible.
It's awesome.
The Ottawa Senators are on a hot streak, find themselves in the third spot. Tampa Bay and Boston are now on the cusp, both teams that are desperately in need of do we stick this thing out or do we completely derail this roster and restart all over again? In my opinion, I think both teams are there. Columbus is on a Cinderella run. Like I said 2 weeks ago, though, it makes me nervous. That they weren't supposed to be there, right? 17-5-3 at home, 7-14 on the road.
Yeah, that's scary, man.
Makes me nervous. Bruins minus 20 goal differential makes me nervous. Under 500 on the road. More confident in Tampa Bay with a plus 35 goal differential that says you're a little more solid. I look at Ottawa too, same thing, only a +1 goal differential, right? Really, that's what I've been paying attention to. The two dark horses in the East right now are Montreal and New York, as they're the ones up and coming from slow starts. And look out for Montreal. I mean, they are just a team that is on a mission. I think they're a little undisciplined. The games I've seen them, they are a little undisciplined. But they're young and they're exciting. And the Rangers seem to have found their Rangers identity, at least with this organization. Whether that's good enough to get them deep into a run, obviously is proven not to be true. But very, very fun. Because then you got the Flyers right there. The Islanders are only 3 points. They're 6 points out. I mean, you've got almost every single team in the East,
In it. It feels
outside of
like.
Buffalo. Outside of Buffalo, within 3 wins of a playoff spot right now.
That's why 4 of your 5 rock solid, rock softs today are from the Eastern Conference.
Let's hear it. What do you got?
Oh, you want to go into it? Okay. You know what?
Let's stay in the East. I mean, we're here. We're not going to go west and come back.
We're here. Okay, we're here. All right. So let's go to another edition of Rock Solid and Rock Soft.
I can't handle this too rocky right now.
Nah,
I found that one for you. All right, here's the deal. We're going to start with the Montreal Canadiens 24-20-5. Rock solid, rock soft.
I'm rock solid on the Canadians. What a game they played about a week ago versus the Rangers. Like I said, really strong. Um, I'm rock solid on them making it a serious push. Whether that lands them in the seventh or eighth spot, or the third spot in the Atlantic is really up for grabs. That's essentially a wild card spot based on how it looks here. Is to be determined. Really, I think on the play of the others. But Montreal, Lane Hudson is an absolute stud. Guy on, oh my God, he's amazing. Um, but I'm solid on the Canadians, and I'm just a big Martin St. Louis fan. I like their brand of hockey. I hope if I'm a Canadians fan, I'm looking at their undisciplined play that gets in the way of them solidifying games. Sometimes they take stupid penalties at the end that puts them in a bad spot, but love what I'm seeing. I think they got to flip their goal differential overall, like get a little better on the road. But ultimately, I'm really liking what I see from the Canadians right now.
The Detroit Red Wings, rock solid, rock soft, 24, 21, and 5.
Rock soft, but not for too long. They're rock soft this year. I think that they were just, I think they put themselves a little too far out. Um, I love what they're doing since the coaching change. But I also just don't know if they've got it. And I think Eiserman's smart enough to know that he is probably a year away from getting back to that true dominating form that he wants to see. And he's going to make the decisions long term that are best for the Red Wings. It's one of those things where, like, oh, the Red Wings are coming up. They did so good. And then, like, at the deadline, they sell pieces that, like, completely, like, slows them down. But it's the right move long term.
And I believe anyone that you're saying is rock soft in these moments is going to be somebody that might be a seller at the deadline, because if you're feeling it and they might be thinking that way, wouldn't you think they'd trend towards being a seller? That's at least my thought process here.
Yeah, it's really funny that you say that. Like you're gonna listen to me. I hate these segments because I feel like anytime I have to make a decision, like I'm a true analyst, I always pick the wrong thing.
Wait,
So who's next?
that's why I didn't make it specific, and I just said, if you like them or you don't. All right, here we go. Your New York Rangers, 24, 21, and 4, rock solid, rock soft.
I'm solid on the Rangers right now, actually. I really like the way they're playing. And really, the reason why I love it so much is that their fourth line has propelled them through this entire run. Sam Carrick, Edstrom, and Matt Rempe have just absolutely dominated. Their problem really is are they going to use Philip Hedl, or are they going to use Mika Zibanejad as their trade bait? Now, Hedl's a lot easier to move than Zibanejad, but Mika Zibanejad is just he is not playing strong enough defensively. He has improved, but you look at someone like Will Cooley, who played on the third line with Hedel and Capo, who essentially they were the best line on the team at the first half of the year. The guy was like a plus 12, best part of his career. Since he's played with Mika Zibanejad as a -4 rating and has pretty much stopped producing. And so there's something to be said for that. And you can't put and you look at where Capo is, like, no longer with the team, and he's absolutely thriving on the first line in Seattle. And you would hate to see that happen to Will Cooley, who essentially is a great depth and a great secondary scorer for the team. You've got to get him with the right guys. And what that mix is going to be to solidify their depth is really going to come down to the next 4 weeks at the deadline. So, but I'm solid on their identity right now. I really like they're playing as the Rangers should have played all year.
I could feel your excitement, and generally, Rock, you're gonna let us know, like, this is not good. I don't like what's going on here.
They're in
And
games.
for the first time all year, I could tell that you are in agreement with the trends of the organization.
They played 0 overtime games in the first half of the season. Since this run, they've played in more 1-goal overtime games, and that to me just is
Tells you
representative
a
of
lot.
the fight. Yep.
All right, final Eastern Conference team. We're going to stay in New York, but we're headed to the island. The New York Islanders, 21, 20, and 7, rock solid, rock soft.
Soft. They're old. Like, they're either old.
I couldn't agree more.
They're just old. Like, it's not like what was it? Like, it's just
It's
I
time
like
to sell
Patrick.
it all.
I like Patrick Waugh, but like Matt Barzell's not happy. And when you've got guys, and it sucks because I hate this, because I hate people taking video clips of this stuff. Like, leave the guys alone, let them play
Yeah.
hockey. But I've got the video clip of him talking about how crappy it is that there's no one in the stands.
Yeah.
You know, That's the best guy on your team. He is the best player on your team. He's got to be happy, and you need the organization is essentially being built around him. And now you're sitting there saying, like, do I need to tear this entire thing down? And like, he's the first guy I'm going to move because I'm going to get the most for him. And if I'm any buyer, right? If I'm trying to make a play,
I was just about to ask you real quick. Give me like a team or two you think would want Matt Barzal.
I mean,
I was thinking the Devils because they need more veteran
team
presence
in the East.
Yeah,
There's not a team that doesn't play against him in the East that wouldn't want Matt Barzal. But
on
if
their
I'm
team.
looking west, I'd be thinking Minnesota would want to make a play at Matt Barzal. Los Angeles would want, and this is, by the way, I haven't looked at any money, so I'm probably off on all of the business.
More just the hockey basis.
But like, I mean, honestly, in reality, Vegas would be someone that makes a play for someone like that because they're a win-only organization, right?
Yeah.
They are win-only. I am ruthless about it. I'll go make that play.
All right. So rock solid, rock soft, Rocky Romanella right there. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to hold the Western Conference for next week. So we will save the Western Conference for next Tuesday, Rocky, because I very much enjoyed that. Final thoughts here on Hockey with Rocky on January 28th.
Boston University goaltender Mikhail Yagorov in his debut start versus BC gets a protocol penalty at the beginning of the game for coming on the ice too early. BU goes down to a power play to start the game, or a penalty kill to start the game. BC scores and wins the weekend 2-0, and then 2-0 in that
protocol penalty?
That means you entered the ice before the referees. You have to enter the ice at at 38 minutes on the clock, and the refs need to go. Someone opened the door. Dude was pumped for his first ever game in college hockey. And Jay Pandolfo, head coach of BU Terriers, is not happy about it. And I am also not happy about it. Just another reason why the NCAA has dumb rules and hates sports. NCAA hates sports.
Yeah, they love money. They love money, hate sports.
The NCAA hates sports, loves policy, doesn't care about athletes.
I cannot believe that. That's almost as reckless as them going on the announcements in the Eagles-Commanders game and saying, if Washington keeps doing this, we can award a touchdown to the Eagles. It's like, where does this rule come from?
I can only feel for Jay Pandolfo. It's no different than an illegal man downfield when someone it dominates a block and takes one step forward because I'm too strong.
That's ridiculous, man. That's ridiculous. Wow. Well, I appreciate that final thought. You just blew my mind right there. That is Hockey with Rocky every single Tuesday. This is what he does. Rocky, thank you very much. Last thought on your way out?
See you around the rink.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we went a little long today, as we do most Tuesdays, because our guys here breaking it down in the National Hockey League. So we will give you our daily bananas on the way out here. Here we go. Quickly. I got you. Ducks plus 1.5 against the Kraken. I got Ovechkin to record a point against the Flames. He's only had 1 point in his last 4 games, so I believe he gets off that snide. And I got the Winnipeg Jets on the money line. They've won 3 straight, and they are in Montreal. So those are my 3 daily bananas for the people. And that's the Rome Show. BubblesEsports.com, X, YouTube, Roku TV. Really appreciate the people for tuning in. We're back tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Andrew Romanella, thanks to my brother Rocky, the mothership, 12OZ Sports. I'll see you. Peace.
Thank you for listening.